it's time for more Otome.
It is time for more Otome. We made the people a promise.
To be fair, we were going to talk about something else.
Yes.
And then you were playing through something we know last time we spoke on the podcast, and then you finished that and you had such a visceral reaction to it that I was like, I think the better idea here is for you to talk about this instead of what we were originally going to talk about, because I feel like you got some things you got to get off your chest.
Yeah, I think you're right. The other one, we could postpone. I mean, not that the other one's bad, but like, there's a lot I have
we
to
can
talk
do
about
it at
here.
a later date.
Correct. Yes.
So yeah. Hello, welcome to this week's episode of the Seasonal Anime Checkup OVA. It's a podcast where we have conversations about video games, anime, and manga. Hello, I'm Jared, joined as always by Doc, Al, and Lady.
Hello.
This is episode number 318, and Al's gonna chit-chat about some Bustafellows.
Bustafellows.
Is there like a subtitle to that game, or is
Nope.
it just Bustafellows?
Just
okay.
Bustafellows.
I was not sure one way or the other. I could not remember.
That's totally fair, because usually they do have some kind of silly subtitle, but this is just Bustafellows.
Bustafellows. Bustin' makes me feel good.
Bustin'. Which, like, what a title, man.
It is certainly a title, which doesn't really tell you anything about the game in any sort of way. No,
and it never comes up in the game either.
You first started playing this game, like, it wasn't last year, was it? It was like 2021.
2021, yeah.
Right, because that was when you first started streaming, and you were just playing Otome games and playing Bustafellas.
Mm-hmm.
And that was how you started playing this game, and then you eventually realized, I don't really like, I wouldn't say I don't really like, but the slow nature of playing an Otome game on stream is kind of not the way you play Otome games.
Correct. It is not at all how I play them.
So eventually you stopped doing that and then transitioned into the fishing streams, which is a very different thing altogether.
Yeah, you don't fish in Otome games, unfortunately.
No. But yeah, so I have seen like a little bit of this game from when you initially streamed it like 2 years ago.
Yeah, you've seen parts of the common route.
Right. Which again is not a whole lot of that game.
No, it's not.
So I kind of have an idea about like some of the characters and everything, but like anything past that, I'm just like, I don't know. Al reacted a lot and yelled and showed me some weird images, and that's my gist of what I know about this game.
Is that not how Otome usually goes with us, though?
Yeah, to be fair, you are correct. It's just I have a little bit more knowledge this time around than I do most of the time.
No, that's fair. You've at least seen part of this game. You're aware of some of the characters.
And like kind of the gimmick of the game.
Yeah. Which I guess we could talk about the gimmick really quick. Yeah.
Hey, you are fair to do it.
All right. So the gimmick of this game is that one, all of these dudes are what one would call fixers. They have different specialties, and you're playing.
They really love Coldplay's "Fix You."
Anybody who really likes Coldplay should just get away from me.
Wow.
Yeah, I'll just put it that way. I say this as if my dad was not like a massive Coldplay fan. So you play as Tota. Tuta? Anyway.
You played the game, you should know.
Well, yeah, but like Teuta.
You know, very common name.
Yeah, because you're in the United States and not New York City.
USA.
And she has the ability to go back in time. The thing is, though, that she will always enter somebody else's body when she goes back in time. And so she has to figure out like how to do the thing that she needs to do while in someone else's body in a whole different like situation. So you're introduced to this whole mechanic because the poster boy of the game, Limbo Fitzgerald, who is a crooked lawyer, He dies. He just straight up dies. He gets murdered in front of you. Um, and so she has to go back in time to try and save him. And she ends up in the like local jail as a pickpocket and ends up like calling him to be her lawyer so that she could talk to him and be like, yo, you're gonna die, so just be careful. And I'm like, okay, weird for one. Um, but two, like, sure, let's go along with this. Why not?
Thank
Um,
you, local pickpocket.
right? This poor guy like calls in this massive lawyer and then, he leaves and the guy probably doesn't have a lawyer because he just called one that left. Um, and was eating a hot dog in the police station.
Hot dog.
Blech.
Eating
Um,
some glizzies. Am I
what?
right?
What does that mean?
It's a hot dog.
Gross. Um, and so they're like, okay, well, let's just fake your death. How about that, Limbo? Let's just make them think that you died. So using the abilities of all of the dudes, they fake his death. Um, and so essentially what we've got is Limbo, who is the lawyer. We've got Shu, who is a hitman. We have Helvetica, aka Font Man, who is a plastic surgeon, but also like a master of disguise, essentially. We have Mozu, who is a coroner. And then Scarecrow calls himself
Coroner, not a corner.
coroner.
I just want people to understand.
He's just a coroner. He's just
Yeah, he
90-degree angle.
fold him up into a right angle.
Sorry about the accent. Coroner. He's a dude who deals with dead bodies. And then Scarecrow, who calls himself the boss of the underworld, and essentially he's a hacker. So Moses like, yeah, I can like make a dead body look like you. That's fine. Like I'll prep the dead body. Helvetica will like do the face to make it look like you. Um, Shu can figure out like, I don't know, blood or something. It's this whole thing, and they fake his death. Um, then they keep talking to her. They're like, that's kind of weird that you like came back and were able to make this happen. But thanks, I suppose. It's kind of cool of you. Meanwhile, her apartment falls apart. Do you remember that part at all?
Vaguely.
Yeah, like her apartment complex just collapses and she's like, I'm homeless. This isn't good. And so Scarecrow decides that she will just live in the giant house with all the boys and welcome to a found family story, and it's fantastic. Because everybody like really, really cares about each other and they're just always like laughing with each other and watching movies and playing games and eating food and goofing and Scarecrow has a jar that like if you disrespect him, you have to pay him money. And so like everybody will just like pay in advance to just clown on him constantly. Just pretty funny. Um Also there's a cat that follows her.
Wow.
Um she also has two best friends that are I would say pretty important to the story. One is named Adam, and I'm trying to remember the name of her other friend, the gal. What is her
Adam's a
name?
newscaster. He reads the news.
He is a newscaster. He is also, for some reason, like an idol.
Idle newscasters.
Like he sings and also is a newscaster. Why can't I remember her friend's name? Uh,
Friend A.
why am I blanking on her name? Luca. Luca is her name. Thank you. Thank you, Internet. So she hangs out
You're
with
welcome.
Luca and Adam all the time. They've been together since they were kids. Adam was a Russian transplant, and he learned English from just hanging out with the girls, which is kind of goofy. He's also from like a very, very rich family. He kind of also looks like a praying mantis, but that's a whole other story. He's like one of the only characters that like looks straight at you, and it makes me really uncomfortable when it's like a straight on shot of a character. I don't know why it freaks me out so much. It's just weird. Um, and so I did also like that there were like other characters that interacted with the main character. She has a lot of personality, which is different for a main character in an Otome game.
Right.
She's very much not just a like yep, exactly like that. She's not just like a player insert character. Like she is absolutely her own character. She's really a fun character to play as. So that was exciting to be able to like play as somebody who like actually had some form of personality.
Yeah. Also, for clarification, I sent Al a picture of a praying mantis. That's why she laughed.
Yep, it's true. Um, okay, so in the common route, you have some things happen. One of the underlying elements of the story that I actually find really, really interesting is the idea of um, illegal immigration, the exploitation of like underprivileged peoples, um, like essentially like human trafficking, and like what that means for society, essentially. Again, not something you'd really expect from an Otome game to like be making like commentary about illegal immigration and like the ethics of like what people do to get out of that. Kind of wild, but that shows up a lot throughout every single route, basically. If not every single, I think it does show up in every single route. Maybe not scarecrows. Yeah, not Mozu, not scarecrow, but I think the rest of them it does. Um, yeah, like that's interesting that they would do that, and especially considering it's a game set in the United States, and like this would actually be something that is quite relevant. Um, Unexpected. Very, very unexpected. Um, but with the like common route, again, you fake Limo's death. There's like this big boss man who's been trying to like get him murdered. Um, they they end up doing this like big showy thing where they like take all the money from this guy and then throw it out of a helicopter and run off. Um, and then, and then at the end, the main character's like, "Oh hey, like that was wild. You threw a bunch of money just like out into the world. Why would you do that?" And like, "Oh, that wasn't real. Are you kidding? The real money's still here. Do you want some of it? We'll give you a cut." Like, "Oh, okay." Um, so yeah, the ethics and moral compass of some of these people is not completely great, but not everything is black and white. That's kind of fun, I think. Um, but you find out about like this secret society type thing. I think it's called Roy Lopez, Ruy Lopez. And it was founded by these two brothers, and you meet with this woman named Irina in the jail, and she's essentially like, yeah, like they would shove us into like these containers just full of people, and people would die around you, and then they would pull you out, and they'd find the weakest one and just like execute them on the spot to show you like they mean business. Um, Again, what? And so this Roy Lopez group is supposed to basically be fighting back on the behalf of these people, but there's also just some corruption that's happening within it and confusion on who's the leader and what all's happening there. Also turns out that Arena murdered her roommate with a lamp.
Just very casually.
Yeah, because she was jealous that she was like escaping the like lifestyle that they had ended up in. I was like, oh, that's sad.
Bonk.
Also, she ends up dying off screen. You don't find out later until you meet somebody who makes people disappear. Anyway, so like one of the first things you end up doing is you meet this like little riffraff kid, and he's out for revenge because the big boss man from the prologue killed his papa, his daddy, and he wants revenge. And Shu the whole time is like, kid, you don't want to kill somebody. Trust me, you don't want to go down that path. You don't want to know what it's like. Kid's like, but what if I do? So he ends up killing that guy and going to jail and having a real bad time with it. And main character's like, what if I just go back in time and prevent that from happening? It's probably a good idea. So like Shu provides the guy with like a bulletproof vest and is basically like, hey, by the way, somebody's gonna shoot you like in this spot right here in a few minutes. So like maybe don't die. That'd be cool. And then they record him saying like, kid, I'm gonna kill you like I did your dad. And Luca is, a cop and comes and arrests him. So that guy's taken care of. But they find a USB drive. Ba-ba-bam. And Scarecrow knows how to hack it. Ba-ba-bam. And they find a
I
list
plugged
of
it into my computer.
hacker voice admin. Which I guess is something I should mention is that Scarecrow has this like computer system that he's built called Anima. And there's this really good scene when you first meet Scarecrow that like the room is really dark, as hackers like. And he's trying to be really dramatic about it and like have Anima put the spotlights on, and he like goes to spin his chair so that he could look at the main character. But ends up spinning way too far and just keeps going in circles. And Anima's like, I don't know what's happening here. I don't know how to help you. I'm just a computer. It's really embarrassing for him. It's pretty funny. Which you need some humor in that when people are dying and there's human trafficking.
Yeah, as you do.
As you do. But yeah, we find out there's some really important people that are on this USB drive. Uh-oh. Yikes. There is also like a very short pandemic type subplot in this game, which hits a little bit. I mean, it hit different when I was playing it in 2021, but like even still playing it, I'm like, oof, oofa doofa.
Oofa doofa.
People are like dying for the vaccine instead of, dying because they don't want to take the vaccine.
The opposite of what it actually is.
Yeah, like they're like also trying to kill people for the vaccine because they want the vaccine so badly. So you and Mozu ends up getting like locked in the morgue together at one point to see if you're both gonna get it. You don't, so that's good. And you end up getting the vaccine out because Limbo figures out ways to essentially bribe his way in and get it, which is nice of him. Question mark. But you do find out like this like hybrid high school college thing has some shady stuff going on, and that's where the vaccine is being held. And that place will come up again. There's also like a heist part in I think chapter 4 where like fashion week is happening, and there's like a powerful dude that's attending there that you have to like steal his information. And Helvetica basically turns himself into a very beautiful lady and is trying to like proposition this guy to get the information. It's it's a wild common route because it just goes all over the place and none of them really are completely relevant, but you kind of get an idea of what the dudes are about and what they're doing. Like not a lot of the stuff that they do is actually ethical, but you're also just not mad about it because it ends up doing some good for the world. So, sure. Um Also they shop at Trader Jones's a lot.
Good
Just
name. Good name.
pretty good, Trader Jones's. There is also there are three elements here with they have to happen so you know which dude you're gonna end up with. One, the dude that you have the most points with will name the cat.
Wow.
So you can have a cat named Max.
Who'd
You
ever have a cat named Max?
I don't know who would have a cat named Max. He's just looking at me like what? Um,
That's my name.
you can have a cat named Cat. You could have a cat named after yourself.
That's just narcissistic.
Well, you don't name it, and you get really mad the whole time because they're like, "Oh yeah, Tata's like in there sleeping with Helvetica and like cuddled up to him," and she's like, "Ah, what? No." Um, and they're just talking about the cat the whole time. Um, the cat can be named Anna after Anastasia. Or the cat can be named Ginger. So those are your choices of cat.
Is the cat orange?
No.
What the heck are you doing? You done goofed.
Why? Because of the Ginger name?
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's because of Scarecrow has like a homemade comic book that he made with a character named Captain Ginger.
Gotta read the room. Read the
Yeah.
cat room.
Read the cat room. Um, the second event is that oh, I should have mentioned you're a journalist. You play as a journalist. I didn't mention that she is a journalist, but that is her job. The second thing is that the dude that you had the most points with will help you open your envelope that tells you that you're like the rookie of the year and that you're going to get a book published. And that's all done in like cute ways. And the third way that you know which dude you're going to get is that they pick your swimsuit in chapter 4, which can be interesting because Limbo's older sister and Carmen, who is the bar owner, um, they take you out bikini shopping essentially, but they like call the dude that is most interested in you, be like, "Hey, what kind of bathing suit should we get her?" Ha ha ha. So you always end up in the bathing suit that they like, which for the record, putting this on the record, Limbo has the best taste in bathing suits. Period. Hands down. That's it. Limbo has best taste in bathing suits. Mozu's hilarious because when you show up in the bathing suit that he picked, he's like, "Ah, yes, you have good skeletal features."
That's what I like to tell the ladies.
Yeah, I mean, like Helvetica when he first meets you says you have like nice scarf skin, which I think is your fingernail stuff. And
Oh,
then
is this the game that was like all weirdly about fingers?
no. That was Seven Scarlet. That was all about hands.
I thought there was something weird about fingers in this game as well.
They all have really
Maybe it
long
was the
fingers.
scarf thing.
The scarf skin was a thing, and then like Mozu at one point talks about like your eye sockets and like your cheekbones and stuff.
Right.
Yep. Scarecrow just straight up says like, "I picked it, but it wasn't because I was horny. I promise."
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
I was like, "Damn, dude, you're just making it worse for you. Like you're making it look like that was why you picked it. Like you should just said nothing." Um, which based on the description she gave of like the bottom part of the bathing suit, yeah, he definitely was just horny. But she wears like denim shorts over it, so you can't see that part. She's like, yeah, he gave me a G-string. I'm like, oh my. Okay. Well then. Great. Fantastic. Um, like Shu just has like a black bikini. He's like, oh, look at you. You can be sexy. Good for you. I'm like, thanks, I guess. Limbo has the best taste in bathing suits. It's cute. It's all ruffly. I like it. Anyway, um, so yeah, you have all of these like common routes. You hang out a lot at the bar that Carmen runs. That's a big plot point. She has um a bouncer named Pepe, who's like this big ex-boxer man who wears a belt buckle that says GGG, which just makes me think of Guys Grocery Games, which is not what's intended, I'm sure. And then there's this kid that works at the bar named Alex, and kids are not supposed to work at the bar, but he does anyway. So, you want to talk about some routes?
No.
Wow. Why are we even here then?
We're just here to listen to the common route, and then that's you gotta make your own conclusions.
Oh, well, we're gonna come back to a common route. We'll come back to it. Because you have to go through all the dudes' routes to unlock like the final two routes.
Mhm.
And I'll try and go through these like relatively quickly. But I started with Limbo this time. I started with Mozu last time, but I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go with a poster boy. He's unlocked. Let's go.
Was there
Um,
like a set order that you should do these in, or was this kind of like do whatever?
um, so they're all unlocked to begin with. So you can choose whichever dude you want to start
Gotcha.
with. Um, I went with, like I said, the first time I was gonna go in Mozu, but this time I played in the order that like the developers suggest. So I went Limbo, Shu, Helvetica, Mozu, Scarecrow, and then the final two routes. Which is wild. They're like, here's the poster boy. Why don't you do his route first? Like that's not usually how it goes. It's usually a situation like Code Realize where you have to do everybody else's to unlock the poster boy. But anyway, um, Limbo's route, despite the fact that people are like, oh yeah, this is not a very heavy route. It's kind of heavy. Um, again, he's a lawyer. He has a reputation of being able to get um like a not guilty verdict no matter what. Um, so he's like basically the opposite of Miles Edgeworth.
Yes.
Yeah. Um, but you know, he's kind of considered shady. They like straight up tell him to his face, like, yeah, you're known as the crooked lawyer. He's like, yeah, no, it's fine. His sister is the like main prosecutor. I forget what they're called. But anyway, they're also like a super, super wealthy family. And he seems to like get along fine with them, I suppose. Like he goes to spend time with them on the holidays. Um, so like he must not hate them entirely, I suppose. But in his route, you run into this fella from his past who is like really, really buddy buddy all of a sudden. Um, like he just walks straight up to the main character and takes her phone. Is like, here's my phone number, and like types in his phone number on her phone like the first time he meets her, which is weird. Um, and he tells her a few times, like, hey, you know, Limbo and I had an awkward situation last time we hung out, and you know, it feels awkward. Will you come just kind of be like the buffer? And she does that a few times. Limbo is also a lightweight when it comes to booze. So he gets drunk a lot and really easily, and this guy gets him drunk a lot and really easily. Um, and something just seems like very off about him the whole time. And turns out that they used to work at the same firm, and that the guy did something ethically that Limbo just could not go along with, which was he bought a woman, like human trafficking bought her, and he's like, yo, like you can't buy people. That's not cool. Um and you find out that like the guy was in love with this girl and he was like planning to take care of her and her kid, and that this guy like went to prison for human trafficking and purchasing her and all that. And during that time things went bad. And by the way, there's going to be several content warnings that we should put in this. I didn't think about that. Um because there's a big one. This lady just straight up like committed suicide in a bathtub. So yeah, that sucks. Um and the guy like found her, and um actually no, Limbo found her. Limbo was the one who found her because the guy was in prison. And Limbo talks about like how horrific it was to find her and how like he can never get that out of his head. And so this other guy's like, what if I just do the same thing? Like, what if I just make main character who Limbo very clearly cares about? Like, what if she just has to kill herself in order to keep him alive? How about that? And he like puts some nano machines in
What is this, Metal Gear now?
him. He like puts these nano machines in like some wine that they're drinking. And there's this whole scene of like, oh, you can switch the cups if you want to. It doesn't. Whoa, I've got to prove that there's no poison in it. Turns out that he just nano machined them both. So like he has nano machines and Limbo has nano machines. And the whole deal is that like she has to go into the same room, like same hotel room where the lady was found, and off herself by like 5 o'clock, or the guy will activate the nano machines within Limbo and kill him.
You didn't
Uh,
realize this was Hideo Kojima's Otome game.
right? Well, and the solution to the problem is very wild because what they decide to do is just kill Limbo. Because if they kill Limbo, then the nano machines don't have power, and they won't be able to poison him anymore. So like the whole team just gets together like, all right, well, Mozu knows how to like inject you with enough stuff that we can just kill you, but then we also can just bring you back. It's fine. Um, so poor Limbo dies twice in this game because he died in the beginning and then he died again here. And then, they faked his death another time, so he kind of died 3 times. Um, but yeah, that's how they get around the whole nano machine thing is they just kill him and then bring him back. Like, okay. But that saves her. Um, and the other guy is like, yeah, I don't like this. I don't like that you survived. I don't like that she didn't off herself. So what if I just activate my own nano machines and bleh? So he's dead.
All right.
Yep. Um, and then we live happily ever after with Limbo.
Okay.
Um, you have a wild CG with like tongue smooches with Limbo. I was like, whoa, getting spicy out here. Oh, that's something actually worth noting. This game has nipples. The guys have nipples. That never happens. That never happens. Not that Limbo has them because they don't show his, um, but they do exist. But yeah, you get a smooch scene. Also, you have to make him meatloaf at one point, and you're not good at it. Anyway, so he was cute. I liked him, other than the whole like everybody's kind of dying thing. But um, when somebody says this is the easiest route to get through like content wise. I was like, well then, okay. Which I would disagree with. Because I think that Shu's route is actually the easiest to get through, which is the next one I did. Even though this man is a freaking hitman. Um, because essentially what his route is that he has a list of people that his mentor was taking out, and then his mentor, he found her dead. And his sibling that he was raised with, his adopted sibling, um, he thinks that they're the one who killed her, and took the last page. So he's been looking for this person, but he's also just been taking out people on the page that he has. Um, and then he gets contacted by his adopted sibling and is like, hey, so the last person on the last page that you obviously have been looking for is trying to kill this senator. So I think we should set it up so that we kill that guy when he's trying to kill the senator. That'll work, right? Spoiler alert, you get double crossed.
Oh
Um,
no.
so they make it look like Shu was the one who murdered the senator. Also, like depending on your choices, Shu will either continue smoking or he'll take up the habit of eating lollipops instead.
He got
So,
4 kids censored.
well, I mean, if you tell him a lot that like smoking's bad for you, he'll stop smoking and just like lollipop it instead because he's like, oh man, like I gotta have something in my mouth, but you don't want me to smoke, so I'm not gonna do that. But if you just encourage him to smoke, then he'll just keep doing that. So obviously, I had to do both because of the achievements in the game to unlock things, but um my first time through was like, no, stop that. That's grody. Stop. Um, yeah, so he ends up in jail. And again, we're like, wow, how do we get out of this? And uh main character's like, well, what if I just go back in time to when he's like not in a high security, he's just at the regular jail, and we figure out a way to get him out of that. And the guys, being the guys, like, okay, well, the way to do that is to injure him greatly. If we injure him, then they'll put him in an ambulance, which is much easier to get him out of. And so they send her back. She ends up being like a cop in the jail, and so she just shanks him.
What?
Yep. And she's like, this sucks. I don't like doing this. And he's like, just shut up and do it. Just stab me, okay? Um, so you stab him and then he's getting transported and you save him and then fake his death. So they make a shoe body at one point. And he has to kind of like lay low for a bit because he's supposed to be dead. But he's not. And he like teases Tete a lot because he's like, yeah, you know, my wound where you stab me, you know, it kind of hurts. Um, he also makes fun of her a lot for eating ice cream, which is really rude because ice cream is delicious. So I don't know what his major malfunction there is, but um, he's also a big fan of westerns.
Yeehaw.
Yeehaw! So like when he's teaching her how to shoot, he like teaches her to the tune of like Yellow Rose of Texas, which is wild. You hear like people that are very clearly Japanese go, Yellow Rose of Texas! It's great. Anyway, you end up like partnering up eventually with the sibling. And I keep saying sibling because they imply the whole time that it's your brother, but then or Shu's brother. But you find out later that potentially is a sister, but it's not clarified. So since there's no definitive answer, I'm just saying sibling. Also, you find out that Shu was the actual blood son of the mentor and not the adopted son, even though he thought he was adopted. So that was kind of a weird twist. I don't know what the point of that really was. Um, but yeah, they end up taking out the assassin person, the closer. Yay. Helvetica, Font Man. Font Man is wild. Because he essentially tells you like, yeah, so I was an illegal immigrant, and when I was like in my teens, I was like super hooked on drugs and I was stealing things constantly. And one day I just got like pulverized, and this professor man found me and decided that he was going to raise me as his son and did a bunch of plastic surgery. And now I look like this. And like straight up says a few times, like everything from the waist down is natural, but everything from the waist up is not natural. So this guy did a lot of plastic surgery, seems. Anyway, he also gave him the name Helvetica. And the whole thing with Helvetica is that he is doing a like beauty makeover piece. Um, and also a nude spread for some reason. That was very unclear why. I'm like, why do we have this like plastic surgery feel good piece, but also like a nude spread next to that, but whatever. Um, and while he is in the process of this, the gal who he was supposed to help ends up like overdosing and dying. And so that's not great. So then the editor's like, well, we found you a replacement. It's this gal, and she has like this really massive burn scar on her face. And he straight up is like, no, I'm not doing this for you because you're a drug addict. I can tell by your hands. And she gets super mad and like calls him out and basically like, have you forgotten who you were? And then he realizes like, oh, hey, I remember things about my past now. We were in the middle of getting super, super high and robbing a house, and we accidentally set the house on fire, and one of our partners didn't make it out, and she ended up in jail and had her face burned and blah blah blah. It's this gal. Whoa. Um, and then the other guys like beat him up and threw him in the trash, and that's how the professor found him. So this gal wants revenge because he abandoned her. She wants him to like fall as low as she is. And so like she lures him out at one point and like injects him with a bunch of drugs, and he goes through like an overdose, which I think I sent you some of these pictures. Do you remember that when he's like in
I
the
believe
shower?
so.
He's like
Yeah.
naked and crying in the shower.
Not having a good time.
He's not having a good time. And like the whole thing is like he's like crying and he's throwing up, and Limbo at one point is like, yeah, you can't go in there because he's like butt naked. Um, but she goes in anyway. Well, if you get the good end, she goes in anyway. If you get the bad end, she's like, nope, I'm not going in there. Good luck.
See you later.
Good luck, guys. Um, and so at one point, like Mozu and Tata end up like essentially getting into a car accident, a purposeful car accident, not on their part, but by the burnt lady's part. And taken hostage, and she calls Helvetica out and is like, hey, I'm gonna kill these people because you care about them. This is also after she went back in time, the main character went back in time, because originally she sent Helvetica into this apartment complex that she bombed, and he like got taken out with severe burns, and she's like, no, we're not doing that. Go to this place. So he shows up to the shipping yard, where all the bad things go down, and forklifts and all that jazz. And he like is talking to her and then like sets himself on fire to try and like make it up to her. And then she shoots herself, and they both go to the hospital, and she ends up in like a coma, and he ends up getting plastic surgery from his professor dad. And there's this whole like identity crisis he has of like, am I this person that I used to be, or am I this person who I am now? If you get the good ending, he decides he's Helvetica. That's it. He's Helvetica. If you get the bad ending, then he goes back to the guy he was before and leaves everybody. Um, Amazingly enough, his face is the exact same after the plastic surgery.
So it's very good doctors over there.
I mean, that's basically what they're saying. They're like, "Wow, there's not even like a real scar or anything. Like you look amazing." And then Helvetica also says that he's going to like pay to like try and do some experimental work on the other gal to like make her live. But yeah, Helvetica has like this really big moment with his professor dad, which she does call him like at one point she's calling him like Professor so and so. But then like when this moment was happening, she's like Daddy so and so, and I'm like, oh, don't do that. Don't call him Daddy. That's weird. Um, yeah, Helvetica has his moment. He is very vain and is very much my least favorite character. There are very few things about him that I actually like. That being said, he is he's not super terrible. So like I've dealt with a lot worse in terms of love interest in Otome before. He's acceptable. He sucks, but he's acceptable. Does that make sense?
Could be worse.
Could be worse. Yes. Yes. Um, so then we go to Mozu, who is who I initially was going to date because he is a big fan of the kitty cats and also has rabbits in his morgue for some reason. Just interesting. I brought this up to you, and I've seen some chatter on the internet about it. He's very, very much coded as like neurodivergent, very, very heavily, which is interesting because I don't know that I've really played an Otome game that had that before. And he like makes it very clear to you that that's the situation because there's even moments where he's like, okay, look, like everybody else goes at a very different speed than me. Like I can't keep up with all this stuff. I think in a very different way than other people do, and that's just the way it is. That's the way I am. Um, and I like that they had like a very blatant conversation about like, I'm okay with who I am. This is how I am, but I think differently than other people and I act differently than other people. Which I mean, you could have probably figured out that by the fact that he's like commenting about her like eye sockets and stuff when he first meets her. But it was really cool to have a character like that's dateable. It was different. The bad thing about his route is that there isn't a whole lot of romance on side A because most of side A is trying to figure out what the happened to his little sister who's been missing and getting hit on by this biology teacher named Troy, which Troy is the one who is voiced by Shota, forget his last name, the guy who does Yosuke and MB Barbecue and all that and sounds nothing like him.
Right.
That guy. He's like this sleazy teacher. And like the whole time he's hitting on the character, and she's like, ha ha ha, yeah, uh-huh, sure, whatever, guy. And you meet this other high schooler named Ivy, who used to be really good friends with Mozu's sister. And she like mentions at one point that she feels responsible for his sister going missing, and that like she had mentioned how she had a crush on Professor Troy, and how his little sister like started paying attention to her. I was like, oh no. Started paying attention to the professor. I'm like, this is not going to end well, is it? It's not going to end well. They also like investigate this high schooler who supposedly committed suicide, but Moses is like, yeah, like it doesn't match. That's not what happened to this kid. Like they can say that they found him hanged, but that's not what happened. You find out that the school's been doing like all kinds of shady stuff and paying people to like cover it up. And oh wow, amazingly enough, this Troy guy, kind of a creeper, been like doing bad stuff with students and killing students and also makes bodies disappear. You remember that arena lady I talked about earlier? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
he made her disappear. Kind of like Home Alone. But um he mentions to Mozu at one point, like, I couldn't kill her. I couldn't do it. And after like a whole bunch of stuff goes down, like the school sets on fire. Troy like gets stabbed, quote unquote. He eventually like is caught by Luca, police lady, and admits like, yeah, I've been keeping her in like an abandoned like club room building thing underground, which is weird. I don't know why this school has that, but it's like an underground bunker thing. And he was saying, I haven't been able to kill her. She's down there. But when you get there, she is very much dead and has been dead for a while. And Moser just kind of like cuddles with her in the CG. I was like, oh no. Oh no. Um, but he has a habit of talking to corpses, and so he has like a long conversation with his sister, and it like helps him with some closure, I suppose. Um, he says that he like became a coroner because he was the one who had to identify their parents when they died, and so like he like became fascinated with death essentially. But he doesn't want people to be alone in death, so he like has conversations with the corpses. So like he has this really long conversation with his sister, and um he asked to do the autopsy, but Valerie, Limbo's sister, is like, no, 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 like you're not doing that, absolutely not. And then later on, you find out like at Troy's trial, Moses is like, yeah, the person who did the autopsy did a fantastic job, like really, really well done. I was impressed. I'm like, buddy, that was your sister's autopsy, my dude. You
A little
can't just be
weird.
you can't just be like, he did a great job doing that autopsy. And the problem with this is that I know you haven't watched Bob's Burgers, but you really should. But there's this song about like Topsy the elephant that got electrocuted by Thomas Edison. Do you know that story?
No, not really.
Okay, well, Edison was trying to prove that like the current that Tesla was using was dangerous, so he electrocuted this elephant named Topsy. And there's this musical number in Bob's Burgers where they're saying they're gonna say autopsy at my autopsy, and I just kept singing this in my head the whole time I was doing this route. I'm like, I have to stop singing this Bob's Burgers song about this dead elephant while he's hugging his dead sister. Um, but there's like not romance really to this one. You only get that in the B side of the route, which by the way, everybody has an A and B. And the B side, he like blatantly says at the beginning, like, hey, I may have like made your brother's body disappear, which is also something I've neglected to mention. Her brother died, and she's been trying to find out like what happened there. And you just get this bombshell of, like, I may have like dismembered this guy. And this all came out because like that's what Troy did for money outside of being a teacher, was like dismember and make bodies disappear. And Mozu apparently did that once to a like 22-year-old guy 6 years ago. And she's like, hmm. Um, there's never any closure on that. We don't actually know if that's the situation, but it kind of gets dropped and nobody seems to really care. And then he takes her to like a fake prom.
All right.
Yep. I was like, okay. She didn't get to go to her prom because her brother died. So Moses is like, what if I take you to prom? This is fun. But then he starts talking about like, hey, this is something that I didn't really care about, but like now I seem to be like interested in you and interested in having a good time and like I like this idea. And so you actually see him like become interested in something that isn't just dead bodies. He's like, yay, romance. This is cool. So that was wild that like, you get more CGs with him and his dead sister than you do with like him and her together. But you know, Atome. Um, which brings me to Scarecrow. That's our final route, and then we'll talk about like the final routes, and then we'll be done. Scarecrow is again our underboss, or underworld boss. He's the hacker man. He's awkward and strange. We find out that like he was working for like an arms dealer a few years ago, and that because of some work he was doing, like they killed his dad, and they like tortured him, and he has a massive fear of water because he like got waterboarded. Wild. Um, and then he ended up, much like many of these dudes, faking his death and becoming someone else. He didn't do a whole lot different because his name was Crow and now he's just called Scarecrow. Like his real name was Crow. Like cool, I guess. Good job. Um, but he finds out some dirt on this arms manufacturing group and they break into the school to get the information. They, do all the things that you usually see in, things like National Treasure where they fake the cameras so that you can't see that they're going in there. Um, and at one point he like gets thrown into a fish tank by the assassin guy who was showing up in shoes route, like the closer is what they call him. And dude just goes like completely ballistic and like tries to murder this guy. And they're like, "Hey, my dude, that's different for you. Are you okay?" I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about. I don't remember what happened like after, I got hit. Did I do something weird?" And it's like, "Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I don't like where this is going." Um, so you continue doing some research with him and you find out that like they have this like headquarters that's technically under the ocean, and you're gonna go find this like hacker guy who's been kind of helping you along the way. And you show up and the closer is there, but also Crow's dad is there, and his dad is actually not dead. He's just been like forced into helping this arms dealer group. um Yay, he's not dead. Boo, they're gonna blow up this facility and leave us down here. Uh-oh. So it it blows up. Shu ends up like swimming to shore to try and get help, and you as the main character are trying to help Scarecrow who like got his leg pinned in the ruins, and like you keep doing this whole thing of like going up and getting air and then going down and breathing for him and then going up and getting air and going down and breathing for him. And at one point he just kind of like gives up and stops even trying to get his leg free. But then yay, Shu's here with help to help us all. Woo! No one's gonna die today. Um, let's just traumatize this guy even further with water. Why don't we? Seems like a good idea. Um, so they get him back from this, and he's like not conscious, but they like put him on the couch, and she's like watching over him to make sure that everything's okay. And when he wakes up, he starts just choking her out and is basically like, I don't want to die. And like straight up trying to murder you as a character. And all the dudes show up and like, yo, not cool. Um, she, this made me a little mad. I don't like it when love interests are like, hey, what if I kill you? I also don't like it because the protagonist was basically like, hey, I forgive you even if you try and kill me. Like, girl,
Not good.
self-respect. Come on. You can't forgive the guy when he's trying to murder you. Like, he very obviously has problems that need to be taken care of here. And he does go to Helvetica's dad, Professor Man, who is also apparently like deals with some kind of psychology stuff, even though he's a plastic surgeon professor. I don't know. And he keeps saying like it's not like a split personality, but it's like a dissociative personality situation that I guess trauma caused. And so Scarecrow was like afraid to be around her for a bit, rightfully so, because he did try and murder her. Um, but he ends up like getting called out at one point um to they basically say like give up any information that you have about the arms dealer. Also give up Anima and we'll let you and your dad go. It's fine. And he's like, "Yep, I will do that. That sounds like a great deal. I will I will meet you at the shipping container yard area where again everything is great and nothing bad ever happens." Except for him and his dad get thrown onto a like subway car that is going very fast into nothingness. For some reason there's like this tunnel that just goes into a wall that like was never finished. I don't know why that is the case, but that is the case. They don't have cell phone signal. He's like, well, guess this is how we die, Dad. Yay. But they end up finding a spot where they have cell signal for like 4 seconds. And he sends like this wild encrypted message to the main character during that 4 second period. She goes back in time and like tells him what the message said. And they're able to figure out like, hey, throw the power for this one particular area code. And then you and the dude show up at that area code after, and like you see this wrecked train, but then like him and his dad are crawling out of it, like, hey, we're fine, we're alive, ha 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 ha. I think the assassin guy dies at this point. I don't remember. Something like that happens. Anyway, he's alive, his dad's alive, everybody's happy. Hopefully he doesn't try and kill her anymore. I don't know. That seems kind of bad. And then you spend New Year's with him and you try and kiss him and y'all knock teeth instead.
Ow.
Oops. Oops, my goops.
Painful.
Yeah. I guess that's something I should have mentioned is that like on the B route for most of these dudes, you end up spending like New Year's Eve with them and having like this big celebration. So there's that. Anyway, so then we get more of the like common rowdy bits again. Um, and these go places, which is what I was yelling at you about. So the first one is called Full Circle. And going back to the beginning where I was talking about like the secret organization, the Rui Lopez one. We find out a lot about this group. because we find out that like Carmen, the gal who runs the bar, she has um her lover who is in a coma and is going downhill very quickly, and she's like, yeah, he was like almost murdered by his little brother. And Tuta had heard this story like the whole time about it. It's like, huh, interesting. I've heard this about this group. I wonder if they're the same thing. And at one point, I forget why she goes back to the bar, but she goes back to the bar and it's unlocked. And she goes in and she hears people talking. And I knew this guy was going to be relevant because he shows up for like maybe 10 seconds in other routes and has a sprite, like he has artwork. And it's like, there's no reason why you're just popping up here and you have like full on artwork if you're not going to be relevant later. There's no way. Why would they do that? It's because he's important here. Um, but you find out that the kid Alex that is running the bar, uh, again, the plastic surgery in this town is amazing because it turns out that like he's much older than what he looks like, and that he is like used plastic surgery to like de-age himself to look like a kid and to change his face, and that his older brother is like Carmen's lover, and that he is like the ringleader of this group. And so you're overhearing all this happen, and then you make a noise because of course you're the protagonist, and you make a noise and alert people. And the big I think he's like district attorney. I don't know what he is. He's like a head honcho guy, um, who like wants to go to the Supreme Court and then become governor and then go to the Supreme Court again or something. I don't remember. I sent it to you. I was like, this isn't how U.S. government works, but that's fine. Unless you mean state Supreme Court and then governor and then actual Supreme Court, in which case that would actually be right. Who could say? Anyway, he murders you, or he tries to. He shoots you, and then you go back in time. And you call Alex and you're like, don't go to that bar. I'm not going to that bar. Don't go to that bar. He's going to shoot you. He's going to shoot me and he's going to shoot you. Don't do it. Um, and so Alex, who at this point we learn his name is Alexei, actually, um, he was also an illegal immigrant, and so was his brother, and they started this organization. And the district attorney man like turned them against each other and made it seem like the older brother was like pulling some shenanigans to the younger brother, like beat him up to the point that he almost died. Um, and so Alexei's like, well, what if I just murder that guy? So he goes to like the hotel where the dude's staying and tries to murder him. There's a really good part here. This is going to be the second time I bring up Home Alone in this podcast, which is wild. Um, but of course, that's just who I am. There's a part where like they get into like a shootout type thing, and Shu, you know, he's a hitman, so he's doing all right. But one guy gets past, and he like yells at Limbo to do something about it. So Limbo just like pulls the carpet out from under him, like some Home Alone Scooby Doo. I don't even know. Like he just makes this guy go flat on his and it made me laugh a lot when I was reading it. Um, and you eventually end up on the roof with the district attorney and Alexei. And then Carmen shows up and is like live streaming this whole thing of like all the confessions. And you find out that like this like underground app that the protagonist has been using this whole time for information has been run by Carmen the whole time. Um, and she was also like planning to adopt Alex, but now she kind of wants to kill him because he killed her lover. It's wild. She doesn't actually kill him though, so that's neat. District attorney gets arrested. A lot of the bad stuff comes out about like, oh hey, maybe the police chief is also on this list of people who've been doing things. Uh-oh. And you find out that like Carmen, like Alexei ends up getting shot and he's in the hospital, and Carmen like goes to the hospital every day and checks on him but doesn't actually like go in and talk to him. She just like goes to talk to the doctor to see how he is. And she eventually gets to the point where she's like, yeah, I still like have feelings about this, but I do actually just want to go ahead and like adopt him and be family with him. Um, which brings us to, we end this full circle story with somebody posting on Full Circle about how the best friend Adam cannot get away with murder. I'm like, what? It was very unexpected. And that brings us into the very, very last part of the story, which I have feelings about. So this one is All Like Sign, New Year's. And a lot of it is done from Adam's perspective because again, like he's been accused of murder. And I think the neatest part about this, I have feelings about it because I don't know that it's really executed particularly well. Um, but there is one aspect of it that I think is really neat, and that you find out that Adam actually has like a brain tumor. And as you're playing through him, playing as him throughout this story, like his vision keeps getting worse and worse, and his like perspectives are getting blurrier. Um, so like there's one point where he gets like a birthday gift and he has to like focus for a second to see that it's like these baseball tickets. The only character that things don't get extremely blurry for are the main character, and the only thing he can really tell is her eyes by the end of it. But this is kind of a story of what actually happened to her older brother, because again, that's been like an underlying part of this whole time, that Zora Bridges was a cop. Bad things happened. He ended up like getting into gang activity and drugs, and then he was found like partially dismembered, and some of his personal effects were found. They're like, okay, well, he's dead. So the protagonist has been trying to figure out like what actually happened here. So we find out what happened here. And again, like some of the execution here is really not great. And Adam was the one who killed her brother. And the problem that I have with this is that like that in and of itself isn't bad, because what they're saying is that he was sexually assaulting Luca, who's her other best friend, and that Adam like killed him to stop that. And they do actually hint at that in one of the like comment route things, that Luca is really, really adamant that she helps like sexual assault victims and like does some shady to try and protect them. I was like, oh, that's a callback. I get it. And understand now why she would do that. The problem here is that the main character the whole time has been like, I love my brother. He was great. I have great memories with him. And then you get this and you're like, oh, he was a monster. And then like Adam is talking about at one point that like there was some implying that like he might have been actually targeting his own sister for that as opposed to her best friend. And how like she was his, and but there is this really good scene like where you have Adam explaining to the main character like what was happening when this all went down. But then you get flashes in between that of what was actually said by her brother Zora. And you see how Adam's still trying to keep that like positive image of her brother alive, even though you know that like what he was actually saying when he was being killed was like absolutely horrendous. I just feel like we should have had more hints that this guy maybe was bag, and like it kind of makes all the moments where the main character is like, I love my brother, he's such an interesting person and he affected my life in such positive ways, like, oh, but he was a terrible person who maybe was trying to sexually assault you. Cool. Could have been dealt better, but um, at least some of this was interesting. The thing that's unclear about it is that you end the entire game with a scene of the three of them on some train tracks, like Luca, main character, and Adam. They're on some train tracks as kids. Then you see them as adults. And then you see the two girls disappear, and then Adam is on the train tracks by himself, and then he looks back, and that's how the game ends. And then he does like a monologue, which, by the way, this part sucked because all of it was in Japanese and there were no subtitles. So I had to go and look up what he said after the fact. But it's unclear. Like he goes back to Russia. They say that, but like, is he dead? Is that what they're implying with the whole like looking back thing and him being by himself? What happened? Who knows? But I guess we might find
in the
out.
sequel.
I'll say we might find out because there is a sequel coming up. But yeah, there were some parts where like lines were just not translated for some reason. It's like, oh, okay. You could go back in the log for most of them and see what was said. But because that was the very end of the game, you could not check the log to see what the final monologue was.
Seems bad.
Yeah, it was a pretty bad thing. But like, overall, this was a really, really good game. I had a really fun time with it. It did some interesting things. It had some like commentary in there that I wasn't expecting. Um, I feel like the last one, you know, the whole treatment of her brother was kind of dog. Um, but like I liked it. I liked this game a lot. I love the characters and it's very much like a found family. Everybody loves each other. Like they even at the end when she's like, "Oh yeah, my apartment's built back together." Like I could move back in there. She's like, "But do I really want to? I want to stay with these guys." And it's just really cute to see them all interact together. And, you know, it's weird that I say that when there's like, you know, drugs and sexual assault and suicide and attempted murder and all that fun stuff. But, you know, it's what happens when you hang out with a bunch of weird fixer men who are drawn by like a well known, like, erotic artist.
The tracks.
Yep. Anyway, you want to rank it?
Sure, let's rank it.
All right. Are you on there?
I am here, yes. Hello.
All right. Let's do this.
Is there okay. Since we have 27 games on this list, I don't think we need to go through every single game to get up to where we need to go.
Right.
Where do you think we could start at?
Let's start at number 10.
All right. Is this better or worse than Mystic Messenger?
It is better.
Is it better or worse than Code Realize Wintertide Miracles?
It is better.
Is it better than Dairoku Agents of Sakuratani?
It is better.
Is it better than Hatoful Boyfriend?
It is better.
Is it better than Olympia Soiree?
It is better.
Is it better than Pio Fiore Faded Memories?
It is better.
Is it better than Collar Cross Malice?
It is better.
Is it better than Code Realize Future Blessings?
That's where it's going to land.
All right, number four.
Number 4. I did not expect that going into this. But I was looking at this earlier. Yeah, that's how you spell it.
Cool.
So God, I hope we don't have a situation where the sequel comes in and blows it like Pio Fiore's did. But
yeah,
I was looking at this list earlier. I was like, holy shit, like I loved this game. Like there were problems with it, but I really, really loved it. And looking at the other ones, I was like, okay, you know what? I think it's gonna land around that area. I knew it was gonna be like top 10 for sure. But I had a great time playing this game.
It ends up being top 5.
It ends up being top 5. That's crazy. Good job, Bustafellows. Don't blow it with a sequel.
Is it a sequel, or is it just like a fan disc situation, or is that really known at this point?
I mean, it's called Bustafellows 2.
Okay, well that kind of that kind of clears things up, I think.
Yeah. It's supposed to come out like May of this year in Japan, so we probably won't get it for like another 2 years or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is straight up called Bustafellows 2.
All right. Well, that clears that up.
There's another game that's like related to it. I think it's called Sidekicks, but that has not been localized. But P Cube has like made hints that they might if Bustafellows did well enough. So we'll see if we get that in between. But for now, we know that Bustafellows 2 is coming at some point.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty, well, I think that's going to wrap things up for this week's episode.
Atome!
The Tomade. We have a Tomade.
We have a Tomade.
So if you would like more from us, head on over to seasonalanimecheckup.com or sac.cool. It's where you can find past episodes of this podcast and other podcasts like Jared and Now Watch. You can also find columns and reviews on the site as well. If you'd like more from Anladium, go to anladium.com. She's got columns and reviews. You can follow us on Twitter and TikTok at Anime Checkup. You can buy our books, One Shiny Moment, a critical analysis of Love, Life, Sunshine, and Hot Tubs and Pac-Man on Amazon.com. And you can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/SACOVA. Buy us a slice of pizza, get access to unedited versions of the podcast early, and a whole wealth of bonus content as well.
Mm-hmm.
Next week be our first episode of February.
Oh my god. It's wild.
We'll figure something out for that. Yep, that's the words I'm trying to use there.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll chit chat about February things.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.